Hello, my name is Rachel Moore, and every dollar I earn comes with a bruise. The night started like all the others, music too loud to hear my own guilt, lights too dim to see what I'd become. I told myself I was just working, just another shift, just another night. But that word it's a lie we tell ourselves when we're trying not to drown. The bar smells like sweat and perfume that's gone sour. My stage name is Luna, the kind of name that sounds like it could survive anything. Rachel couldn't. Luna can. Luna doesn't flinch when men stare too long, doesn't shake when they whisper things they'll forget before sunrise. Luna smiles. Rachel counts the hours until she can stop pretending. I didn't start here. I used to pour coffee in a diner, count tips and quarters, and smile through cracked lips. But when Emily got into college, a full ride that still came with a storm of fees, supplies, housing deposits, I realized the world doesn't care about good intentions. It cares about invoices, and love doesn't pay them. The first night I walked into the club, I told myself it was temporary, just until I caught up, just until Emily's second semester was paid, just until I could breathe. But desperation has a way of stretching temporary into forever. The manager, Vince, was the kind of man who smiled too easily and talked like every favor came with a receipt. He said I had stage presence. What he meant was I looked desperate enough to obey. He taught me how to move slow, deliberate, like my body was both an invitation and a warning. I learned to read the room. Who wanted to be touched? Who wanted to pretend they didn't? Who came to forget? But the real performance was outside the club. Every phone call, every video chat with Emily. She'd ask how work was, and I'd say, busy, but fine. She'd smile and say, don't overwork yourself, Rach. You always do. I'd nod, even though the lie burned my throat. One night, I remember counting my cash in the dressing room mirror. My reflection looked back at me like a stranger. The bruises on my knees from the stage lights, the glitter that never washed off completely, the smell of cheap whiskey clings to my hair, and under it all, the one question that never left me: when did saving her start to mean losing myself? That night, Vince called me into his office. I'd been avoiding him. He'd started asking questions lately, about how much I needed, about how far I'd go, the kind of questions that don't sound dangerous until you realize they're not really questions. He was sitting behind his desk, smoke curling from a half-dead cigarette. You're a smart girl, Luna, he said. You know, there's more money in private parties, classier crowd, better tips. I didn't answer. The room felt smaller, his words thicker. Look, he said, leaning forward, you want your sister to graduate, right? This could clear her tuition by Christmas, just one night. He slid a photo across the desk, a man in a tailored suit, smiling like he owned everyone in the frame. I recognized the logo on his watch. I'd seen it in the papers. A real estate developer, big name, the kind of man who buys silence. Why me? I asked. Vince smiled. Because you look like the kind of girl who still believes in sacrifice. I left without answering. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Emily's face, her graduation photos, her bright eyes, the way she said, one day, I'll make enough to take care of you for a change. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was a version of me still worth saving. The next night, I went back to the club. The crowd was louder, drunker. My body moved on autopilot. Every step felt like a countdown. Between songs, I saw a man at the bar. Not the one from the photo, but someone new. He was watching me, not like the others, but with this strange calm. He didn't smile, didn't drink, just stared. When my shift ended, I found an envelope on my dressing table. No name. Inside cash. More than I'd made all week. And a note. One line. For the sister you'd die for. My stomach twisted. I ran out into the alley behind the club, scanning shadows, searching faces. The night air felt heavier, colder. There was no one there. Just the hum of the city, the echo of my heartbeat, the sound of someone who just realized the world had been watching her longer than she knew. When I got home, I double-locked the door. I sat on the floor, cash still in my hand, that note burning in my pocket. For a long time, I didn't move. The next morning, Emily called. She was excited, said she got invited to a research trip, that she'd need to pay a deposit soon. Her voice was full of hope, the kind that hurts to hear when you know what you're hiding. I told her I'd figure it out. I always do. After we hung up, I stared at the envelope again, then at the clock, then at myself. There's a point where survival stops feeling like bravery and starts feeling like surrender. And that night, when I went back to the club, I didn't go as Rachel anymore. I went as Luna, the girl who stopped, asking how far was too far. The lights came on, the crowd roared, and the man in the corner booth, the same one from last night, lifted his glass in a silent toast. I smiled back, because that's what you do when you realize the game isn't about winning. It's about how long you can pretend you still have a choice. The man in the corner booth was there again. Same seat, same stillness, same glass that never seemed to empty. Hello again. I'm Rachel Moore, but in that room, under those lights, I was still Luna, and Luna was starting to feel watched. I told myself he was just another regular. Every club has one men who come to hide from their own mistakes, who pay to feel in control of something, even if it's just for the length of a song. But this one, he wasn't like the others. He didn't touch, didn't talk, didn't even blink when I danced. He just watched, calm, patient, like he was studying something only he understood. At first, it felt harmless, but then the little things started. The first note came 3 days later. It was waiting in my locker, folded clean, no name. Inside was a photograph, grainy, black and white, taken from far away. I unlocked my apartment door. The timestamp was from the night before. The message beneath it read, "The camera loves you, even when you're not performing." I laughed when I first saw it. Nervous laugh, the kind that pretends you're not scared. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe one of the girls is being cruel. Maybe Vince is testing loyalty. I threw it away. But that night, when I got home, I couldn't help checking behind me every few steps. And there it was, a car I'd never seen before, parked across the street, engine running, headlights off. I stood in my doorway, key trembling between my fingers. After a full minute, it drove away. No license plate visible, just taillights fading into the dark. The next day, I told Vince about it. He just smirked. "That's attention, sweetheart," he said. "Means they're hooked. You should be flattered." I wanted to scream at him, but I didn't. Because in this place, silence is safer than honesty. By the end of the week, more photos appeared. One of Mai's at the grocery store, one outside the laundromat, one, the worst one, of my sister Emily leaving her dorm. That's when the fear changed. It stopped being about me. I started checking my phone for messages every hour, expecting threats, ransom demands, something. But there was nothing, just quiet, the kind of quiet that feels planned. Then came the envelope, left at my door, sealed in black wax. Inside was cash, a lot of it, and a note written in the same careful handwriting. "Don't tell her. Keep dancing." I wanted to burn it. I wanted to take the money and throw it into the street. But the truth? I needed it. Emily's tuition payment was due in 3 days, and I was still short. So I told myself what every desperate person tells themselves. Just this once. That night, I went back to the club. The lights were dimmer than usual. The air is thicker. The man was already there, in his booth. Same seat, same empty glass. When our eyes met, something inside me froze. Not fear exactly, but recognition. Like part of me already knew he wasn't going away. Vince pulled me aside before my set. "Private client tonight," he said. "Corner booth. Big spender. Play nice." My stomach dropped. "Him?" He grinned. "You should be grateful. Some girls would kill for a regular like that." When I stepped onto the stage, I felt his gaze before I saw it. It was heavy, deliberate, like being pulled apart in silence. My movements slowed, my pulse didn't. Halfway through the routine, he stood not abruptly, just calmly, and walked to the edge of the stage. He slid something across the floor toward me. A phone. My phone. It was mine, cracked corner. Same case, same scratches. But I hadn't lost it. It had been on my dresser this morning. He leaned closer and said, almost kindly, "You shouldn't leave your window unlocked." Then he smiled, just once, the kind of smile that said, "Now I know you'll listen." I froze. The music kept playing. The crowd didn't notice. I picked up the phone and kept dancing mechanical, robotic, until my set was over. When I finally reached the dressing room, I locked the door, sat on the floor, and opened the phone. The photo gallery was full. Hundreds of pictures. Every one of me sleeping, dressing, leaving the apartment. The timestamps went back weeks. My throat went dry. I checked the window in the corner half open. I'd left it that way to get air in the summer heat. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at a motel near the highway, curtains shut, lights on. Every sound felt like a footstep, every knock like a countdown. By morning, I had a plan: go to the police, show them the photos, the notes, but when I pulled out the envelope with the first picture, it was gone. The locker was empty, even my backup USB missing. Vince shrugged when I asked. "Maybe you misplaced it," he said, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. He knew. That's when I realized this wasn't random. This was organized. Someone wanted me scared but silent. Someone who knew exactly how much I had to lose. I went to the club again that night, but this time I didn't dance. I just watched. The man wasn't in his booth. Neither was Vince, but there was a new girl on stage, blonde, too young, too nervous. She moved like someone who'd just said yes to something she didn't understand. When she finished, she stepped off stage and went to Vince's office. 10 minutes later, she came out pale as paper, and in her hand, the same kind of envelope I'd gotten, black wax. I felt sick. I wanted to grab her, tell her to run, but fear roots deep when it's watered by debt. So I went to my dressing room, sat at the mirror, and stared at Luna. Glitter, makeup, lipstick, perfect, and whispered, "What did you trade for her?" Behind me, my phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number. "If you want her to stay safe, come alone. Tomorrow night, no stage lights." Attached was a photo Emily walking to class, smiling. The timestamp was from 5 minutes ago. I think someone has turned my life into a show I can't stop performing in. It started with silence, the kind that feels planned, practiced. After that message, I didn't sleep for 2 days. Every shadow became a warning. Every sound in my apartment felt like someone breathing just out of frame. I started showering with the curtain open, slept with a knife on my nightstand, and stopped opening the blinds. I told myself Emily couldn't know, not until I figured out who he was. But secrets rot fast when you feed them with fear. Emily called one morning, her voice bright, like she didn't feel the dread in mine. "You sound tired," she said. "Are you working too much again?" I almost told her everything. The club, the man, the photos. But then she said, "I'm proud of you, Rach. I know you're doing your best for me." And just like that, I swallowed the truth. Because what would she see if she knew? Not a sister, not a savior, just a liar in a short dress who sold pieces of herself in exchange for tuition payments. I thought I could keep the walls up a little longer. I was wrong. 3 days later, Emily found me. It was a Saturday. I'd finished a shift, showered in the cracked mirror of the dressing room, and walked home through streets that still smelled of neon and rain. When I turned the corner to my building, I saw her sitting on the front steps, backpack beside her, face pale. For a second, my brain refused to process it. She wasn't supposed to be here. Em? She stood slowly, holding her phone out toward me. On the screen, a video. Me, dancing. The club lights red and blue, my face blurred by movement, but unmistakable. The caption read, "This is what she really does for you." My stomach dropped so hard, I thought I'd faint. Who sent you that? I whispered. Her jaw trembled. Does it matter? You lied to me, Rachel. All this time, I wanted to explain, to make her understand that every dollar came with a bruise, that I'd done it for her, that love can be ugly when you're starving, but the words caught somewhere between my guilt and my throat. She shook her head. You said you were working nights at the hospital front desk. I needed to keep you in school, I stammered. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? She snapped. Because I watched that clip, and it looked like you sold the last piece of who you are. That hit harder than she knew. I reached out. She stepped back. The distance between us felt physical, like a cliff. Emily, please, I said, voice cracking. You don't understand how deep this goes. Someone's been watching me, threatening me. You can't just show up like this. Threatening you? Her voice softened, confused now. Rachel, what are you talking about? I didn't know how to explain the kind of fear that doesn't leave fingerprints. How do you tell someone that your life has turned into surveillance footage, that every choice is being filmed, edited, and weaponized against you? But before I could answer, her phone buzzed. Another message. Same number. She looked down, and I saw her eyes widen. It's a photo, she said, voice shaking, of me at the station this morning. Then she looked at me, realization dawning slow and cold. Is this your stalker? I grabbed the phone from her, but the message was deleted before I could show her the sender. My pulse pounded. He was watching us now. We have to go, I said, pulling her arm. We can't stay here. He knows where you are. But she pulled away again. Rachel, stop! You sound insane. The moment split open like glass. Everything I tried to protect was bleeding out in front of me, the sister I'd sacrificed for, now looking at me like I was the threat. I wanted to scream that I wasn't crazy, that there was a man who knew everything, our address, her dorm, our mother's grave, but the truth was starting to sound too wild, even to me. So I did what desperate people do when logic fails. I begged. Please, just come with me, just tonight, then I'll explain everything. She looked at me for a long time, eyes full of something I'd never seen before. Not fear, not pity, disappointment. I need to go back, she said quietly. We'll talk tomorrow. And then she turned, walked down the street, didn't look back. I didn't follow. I should have. The night swallowed her, and with it, the last thread holding my life together. When I got back inside, my apartment door was ajar, not broken, unlocked. I knew I'd locked it. My chest went tight. I pushed it open slowly. Everything looked normal at first, except for the kitchen table. A single envelope, black wax seal. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside, a printed still from that video of me dancing, and scribbled across it in red ink. Now she knows. Let's see what she does next. I remember screaming, not loud, just raw, like a sound dragged out of somewhere you didn't know existed. I called Emily's phone over and over, but it went straight to voicemail. I left messages, half pleas, half threats, all guilt. At some point, I realized my hands were shaking too badly to hold the phone. I sank to the floor. The note slid from my lap. The city outside kept going, cars, laughter, sirens, like the world hadn't just cracked open. By dawn, I stopped calling. I sat in the dark, replaying her voice, the last thing she said. You sound insane. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was. But deep down, I knew the truth. I could feel it like static in the air. Whoever had started this wasn't done. The message wasn't about exposing me. It was about control. And Emily, my brilliant, innocent sister, had just become leverage. That's the thing about lies. You think they keep someone safe until the moment they're used as a weapon. And when that happens, it's not just your secret that breaks. It's you. I think the walls in this city can hear me. It's been 3 days since Emily vanished. 3 days since that message. No calls, no texts, no trace, just silence, thick, deliberate, like someone pressed pause on the world. The police didn't help. Adults disappear all the time, they said. Maybe she needed space. Space? Emily didn't need space. She needed safety. She was terrified the last time I saw her. She didn't vanish. She was taken, and I knew where to start looking. The club. The moment I walked back inside, I felt it the way the air seemed to change. Thicker, watchful. The music pulsed like a heartbeat, too slow, too heavy. The girls smiled, like nothing was wrong, but their eyes told a different story. Eyes that had seen things, heard things, learned to keep quiet. Vince was behind the bar, counting cash, pretending I didn't exist. When I approached, he didn't even look up. "You're not on the schedule tonight," he said. "I'm not here to dance," I replied. "Where's the man in the corner booth?" He finally looked up, smirk crooked as ever. "You mean Mr. Black? He comes and goes. Who is he?" "You don't want to know." He said it with that kind of certainty that makes your stomach turn, not because it's a threat, but because it's true. I leaned closer. "He took my sister." That got his attention. He stopped counting. The air between us thickened. "That's a big accusation, Luna. Stop calling me that. Then stop asking questions you can't afford to answer." For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. Real fear. The kind that belongs to a man who's seen what happens to people who dig too deep. He looked over my shoulder, then back at me. "If you want to stay alive, leave it alone." I didn't move. "I'm not leaving without her." He sighed. "Then you'd better be ready to see what this place really is." He nodded toward the back hallway, the one staff weren't supposed to enter. "Down there," he said quietly, "past the locked door. That's where your answers are." I knew it was a setup. I went anyway. The hallway was long, narrow, lined with peeling paint and the low hum of machinery. At the end, a keypad door metal, no handle. I pressed my ear against it. Music, muffled voices, laughter that didn't sound human anymore. Then footsteps. I ducked into a nearby maintenance closet, heart pounding. Two men walked by, one carrying a camera, the other a black duffel bag. They stopped at the keypad. One punched in a code, 4729. The door clicked open. Inside light, a different kind of light. Cold, white. When they disappeared, I slipped out and followed. The room was a converted basement. No music, no crowd. Just a series of curtained booths, cameras mounted on the walls, monitors streaming footage from above. Girls on stage, girls in dressing rooms, girls off stage. They were filming us, all of us, every dance, every change of clothes, every conversation, stored, labeled, and sold. I felt my knees weaken. Then I saw at a separate monitor, smaller, labeled Privet Files, and on one of the screens, Emily. It wasn't live footage. It was a still frame. She was in a small room, sitting on a chair, looking confused. Her backpack was at her feet. The timestamp, the night she disappeared. I froze. My breath hitched, sharp and metallic. Then a voice behind me. "You really should have listened." I turned. Vince. He had a gun in his hand. Not aimed, but close enough. "What is this?" I whispered. He sighed, almost sad. "It's business. You think these girls just dance? You think the money just comes from tips? The camera feeds, the files, the blackmail, it all pays more than honesty ever could. And my sister? She was leverage. You got too curious." Mr. Black doesn't like curious girls. Something in me snapped. All the fear, the shame, the guilt, it stopped mattering. I looked him dead in the eyes. "Where is she?" He hesitated, and that was all I needed. I grabbed the closest thing, a metal rod from the cleaning cart, and swung. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. He dropped the gun. I ran. The corridors twisted like a maze, lights flickering. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to find her. Behind one door, I heard crying. I kicked it open. 3 girls huddled inside, makeup smeared, eyes wide. One of them whispered, "Are you with him?" "No," I said. "I'm here to get someone out." They pointed to a staircase. "Downstairs." The ones who talk too much, they go there. The air grew colder the deeper I went. The stairs led to another door, metal and soundproof. My hands shook as I turned the latch. Inside was what I can only describe as the silent room. Concrete walls, a single bulb, and a camera in the corner, red light blinking. There were handcuffs on the floor, a chair, and in that chair, Emily. Her eyes fluttered open, drugged, unfocused. "Rach," I rushed to her, pulling at the restraints. "I'm here. It's okay. I've got you." But before I could move her, the intercom crackled to life. A voice, smooth, measured, familiar. "Hello, Luna." I froze. "You've proven entertaining, but you should have known every performance has its audience." The red light on the camera blinked faster, recording, broadcasting. I looked up, straight at it. "You want a show?" I said, voice shaking. "Then watch me burn it down." I ripped the camera from the wall. Sparks flew. The room went dark. I didn't stop. I dragged Emily out, up the stairs, through the chaos. Somewhere behind us, alarms started blaring. Someone shouted my name. By the time we reached the street, dawn was breaking pale, cold light, spilling over the city like forgiveness it didn't mean. Emily could barely stand. I held her close, both of us shaking. She whispered, "They'll come after us." I looked back at the building, the club that had eaten us alive, and whispered, "Let them try." Because now, I wasn't Luna. I wasn't even Rachel. I was the only witness left. And for the first time, in a long time, I wasn't afraid of being seen. And this is my last performance. They say the camera never lies, but I've learned it does. It lies every night. It turns pain into art, survival into seduction. It edits out the fear, the shame, the shaking hands. But tonight, I'm not letting it lie for me. Tonight, it's going to tell the truth. It's been 2 weeks since Emily and I got out. 2 weeks of motel rooms, borrowed names, and silence. She sleeps most days. I don't. I can't. Every sound feels like footsteps. Every window looks like an eye. But I've been watching too. The system didn't collapse when I escaped it. Kept moving, smooth as oil. The club reopened. Vince disappeared. And Mr. Black vanished into whatever shadow he came from. The girls kept dancing. The cameras kept rolling. The audience kept watching. And that's when I realized you can't run from something that hides in plain sight. You have to let it see you. So I came back, not through the front door. That would be too easy. I used what they taught me, how to disappear in full view. I walked through the service entrance, past the kitchen, the loading dock, and the back hallway where it all began. The building smelled the same smoke, liquor, and something rotten beneath. In the main room, the stage lights were on, empty chairs, flickering neon. The place looked smaller now, less glamorous, like a carcass with the music turned off. I found the control room behind the bar walls lined with monitors, switches, and streaming equipment. The club wasn't just a club. It was a broadcast hub, live feeds, private servers, encrypted viewers. Every performance is sent straight to people who paid to own what they watched. That's how they made their real money. And that's where I would end it. I set up the cameras myself, one facing the stage, one angled from the back, another close enough to see my face. I tested the mic. My reflection stared back at me in the black screen. No glitter, no makeup, no Luna, just Rachel. When the system flickered to life, a red light came on. Live. The screen blinked. 1 viewer, then 2, then 20, then hundreds. The regulars were tuning in, expecting a show. I stepped into the light. "Hello," I said. My voice echoed through the room. "My name is Rachel Moore. You might remember me as Luna." A pause, long enough for the name to sink in. "I've danced on this stage for a year. You've watched me without ever asking who I really was. So let me tell you." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope, the first one. The note that started everything. "This is the price of survival," I said. Every dollar came with a bruise. Every smile was an apology I didn't owe. I told myself it was for my sister, for her future, but it was never about money. It was about power. Yours, Vince's, his. I pointed toward the camera. The chat feed started scrolling messages, usernames, confusion. Someone typed, "What is this? Where's the show?" "She's crazy." I smiled faintly. "No, I'm awake." I walked to the control panel, hit a switch. The screens behind me lit up every hidden camera feed from the club, every angle they used to spy, every file labeled by date and name. Girls dancing, crying, sleeping, being watched. "This," I said, "is what you paid for." The chat exploded. Panic, denial. "This isn't real. It's a setup. Shut it off." But the stream wasn't just going to their private server. I'd rerouted it to open networks, public streams, police databases, news feeds. Everyone watching was now evidence. Every face, every transaction, every secret. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "You think you own us because you can watch us, but the moment you're seen, truly seen, you stop being in control." I could feel them watching. The powerful ones, the silent ones, the men behind the usernames. Maybe even him, Mr. Black. I wanted him to see me like this. Not on a stage, not under his gaze, but standing on my own terms, turning the camera back. The feed counter climbed. Thousands now. Reporters, streamers. The internet is catching fire in real time. I walked to the center stage, set the note on the floor, and lit a match. The paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash. "This was never a love story," I said softly. "It was a transaction. But here's the thing about transactions. They leave receipts behind me." The servers whirred louder, overloading, overheating. The files, all of them began uploading to the public link I'd built. I could almost hear the system breaking apart. And then, through the static of the intercom, his voice, calm, familiar. "Luna." "Oh." My stomach turned. I looked up at the nearest camera. "You don't get to call me that anymore." "You think this redeems you?" he asked. "You think you're free?" I smiled, not because I wasn't scared, but because I finally understood the answer. "I'm not free," I said, "but I'm not yours either." The speakers hissed, the lights flickered, and the feed cut not from failure, but because I'd shut it down. The truth was already out. It didn't need me anymore. I left through the side door, the same one I entered that first night. The city outside was quiet, that strange stillness that comes before sunrise. My clothes smelled like smoke. My hands smelled like ash. When I reached the motel, Emily was still asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her breathe. For the first time in months, she didn't look afraid. On the TV, the news had already broken the story. Underground exploitation ring exposed. Police raids, arrests, footage, my footage. The word witness is next to my name. I turned it off. The world would keep talking, dissecting, judging. But for me, it was finally quiet. I walked to the window, opened it, and let the air in. Dawn was climbing over the skyline. The same sun that had seen everything I'd done was still rising anyway. And for the first time, I don't owe anyone my silence. They never tell you what happens after the credits roll. After the cops, the headlines, the noise. After the city finally looks away, it's not peace. It's quiet, and quiet can be its own kind of terror. Emily and I live in a small town now. No neon, no cameras, no mirrors on the walls. The air smells like rain instead of whiskey and sweat. She's back in school. She studies late into the night, surrounded by books she once couldn't afford. Sometimes she catches me watching her, and I see that flicker of guilt in her eyes, the one that says, "I know what you did for me." I don't tell her I'd do it again. I don't have to. The world took our names and turned them into something to whisper about. But out here, no one knows who Luna was. And Rachel. Rachel is still learning who she is without the stage. There are nights I wake up drenched in sweat, hearing music that isn't there, the low pulse of bass, the sound of men's laughter, the taste of fear. I keep the light on until it fades. I still dance sometimes, not for money, not for survival, just to remember what it felt like before everything went wrong. My feet remember the steps, even when my mind wants to forget. The body keeps its ghosts. Last week, I got a letter, no return address, no signature, just a photograph me, standing on that stage, moments before the final stream, and on the back, written in careful black ink, the world is watching still. Don't stop speaking. I burned it, of course, but I kept the ashes, because maybe that's what healing looks like, not erasing the past, but holding what's left of it and saying, this was real, and I survived it. Every morning, I stand by the window and wait for the first light, the same way I used to wait for the curtain to rise. Only now, there's no audience, just me and the hum of a world that's finally still. Sometimes I whisper to myself, just to hear it sound like freedom. And when Emily's laughter drifts down the hallway, I smile, because she doesn't have to whisper hers.